Have you ever stopped to think about what it means to fight knowing you're going to lose? Not lose the battle, lose your life, lose everything, and still give every last drop of yourself with a smile on your face? Shinobu Kocho did exactly that, and that's why her death isn't just the saddest scene in Demon Slayer, it's one of the most impactful farewells in the entire history of anime. Before we get into the fight itself, there's something about Shinobu that most people overlook. She was the only Hashira who physically could not decapitate a demon. Think about that for a second. Raw strength. She didn't have it. Her frame was small, her muscle mass limited, and her blade could never reach an enemy's neck with enough force to finish the job. Any other character in that situation would have given up on becoming a Hashira. Shinobu turned that limitation into an art form. She developed an entirely unique fighting style, built on insect breathing, fast, fluid movements, nearly invisible to the eye, combined with poison, wisteria poison, the only venom capable of killing demons. She spent years developing dosages, studying biology, mixing compounds. Her sword wasn't a weapon of brute force, it was a giant syringe with a soul. But here's the detail that changes everything. Doma was no ordinary demon. Doma was Upper Moon 2, the second most powerful being beneath Muzan himself. And he had an absurd ability, absorbing humans by consuming their memories, emotions, and essence. He didn't just kill, he devoured people's identities. And he had already devoured someone Shinobu loved, Kanae, Shinobu's older sister. Before you keep going, sit with that for a moment. Imagine losing your older sister, the person who raised you, who protected you, who smiled at you when the whole world was falling apart, to a monster that doesn't even carry a shred of regret, who eats human beings as if it were some kind of philosophical obligation. Doma killed Kanae, and Shinobu knew it. She spent years carrying that knowledge, and, unlike what we'd expect from a character driven by revenge, screaming, rage, tears, Shinobu did something different. She kept smiling. That eternal smile everyone always praised, it was armor. It was the way she found to carry the weight of loss without letting it destroy her before the right moment arrived. And when the Infinity Castle opened, the right moment arrived. Shinobu's encounter with Doma begins in a way that sends chills down your spine. Doma recognizes her. He remembers Kanae with a disturbing coldness, not with cruelty, not with triumph, but with a genuine indifference that is somehow more unsettling than any villain's laughter. He talks about Shinobu's sister as if he were describing an interesting meal. No guilt, no remorse, because Doma, in all his tragedy, cannot feel anything. That's where the fight takes on a philosophical layer that Koyoharu Gotoge built with extraordinary care. Doma is a perfect void in human form. He was built to feel no emotion whatsoever. He grew up watching his parents kill each other without so much as a tremor. Muzan chose him precisely for that reason, a being without attachment, without pain, without hesitation. And Shinobu, on the other hand, is pure suppressed emotion. All the rage, the grief, the love for her sister, the weight of being a Hashira, the awareness that her body would never be strong enough, all of it compressed into a tiny frame that dances across the battlefield as if she were invincible. The contrast couldn't be more brutal. And then the fight begins. Shinobu is fast, absurdly fast. Every strike is calculated. Every dodge is razor precise. She doesn't try to destroy Doma with force. She studies him, baits him, injects poison, stacks damage. Her strategy is a technical masterpiece. But Doma regenerates, and regenerates, and regenerates. The rate at which his body absorbs the poison is faster than Shinobu's ability to dose it. Every needle she plants in him vanishes within seconds, and she knows it. The audience realizes before a single word is spoken. She is fighting a battle she cannot win this way. This is where Gotoge's emotional script does something devastating. Shinobu doesn't break. She doesn't spiral into despair. She keeps smiling. And we, who know her, understand that smile isn't confidence, it's goodbye. Because Shinobu had a plan she never revealed to anyone. For months, maybe years, she had been ingesting wisteria in tiny amounts, building tolerance, accumulating the poison inside her own body. She had turned herself into a weapon.
Shinobu Kocho's body contained over 70 times the lethal dose of poison for a demon. She didn't go into that fight to win. She went to be consumed, so that Doma would absorb the poison living inside her, so that he would destroy himself by devouring the very source of his destruction, so that her death would serve as the foundation for Kanao and Inosuke to finish what she had started. She planned her own death as a gift. Give that a moment to sink in.
When Doma absorbs her, he doesn't realize it right away. And in that moment of transition, that instant between Shinobu's life and what comes after, the manga and the anime do something that very few titles have the courage to do. They show her at peace. Not in agony, not in terror. She thought of her sister. She fulfilled what she came to do, and she left the same way she lived, with a smile and with purpose. It's impossible not to feel that like a knife to the chest, because Shinobu wasn't a character who asked to be a hero. She was a girl who lost her sister and spent the rest of her life building a reason to keep existing. And that reason was making sure the monster that destroyed her family would never destroy anyone else. She didn't have the strength to kill Doma, so she became the poison he couldn't survive. And Doma begins to dissolve. The being who felt nothing starts to collapse. Ironically, in the moment of his destruction, he experiences something close to an emotion for the very first time. He says he wished he had gotten to know Shinobu better, that she was interesting. It's disturbing because it's hollow. It's the imitation of feeling from someone who never understood what feeling actually is. He dies without understanding what she did, without grasping the depth of the sacrifice, without realizing that the woman he devoured destroyed him from the inside with more precision than any blade ever could. And in the process of dissolving, he releases Kana, not physically, but symbolically. The sisters are reunited in the end. Kanao and Inosuke arrive shortly after and find what's left of Doma. And Kanao, who loved Shinobu like a sister, who was raised by her, who learned from her what it meant to smile through pain. Kanao understands what happened, and the audience understands alongside her. The scene is silent in terms of exposition. There's no monologue laying it all out, no one screaming she sacrificed herself. The narrative trusts the audience to feel the weight without needing a translation. That is mature writing. That is Gotoge at her peak. What makes Shinobu's death so different from other memorable anime deaths is that it isn't a reactive death. She didn't die because the villain was stronger, because she mistimed a move, because she underestimated her enemy. She died because she chose to. And that choice had been made long before any sword had ever been raised, in the quiet resolve of a girl who looked at her own limitation and said, "Then I will become my enemy's limitation." There's no bravado in that, no heroic speech, just a woman who loved her sister and decided that that was enough to change the course of an impossible battle. Within the larger narrative of Demon Slayer, Shinobu's death is also a catalyst. It's what allows the Infinity Castle to be successfully breached. Without her, Doma remains active, and the plan built by Kaguya and the Hashira falls apart. But beyond its narrative function, it represents something that shonen anime rarely embraces with this kind of honesty: the sacrifice of someone who won't be remembered for power, but for intelligence, strategy, and a love that didn't need to be shouted to be real. Shinobu Kocho will be remembered, not because she was the most powerful, not because she won the duel, but because she understood something that very few characters in any fiction truly grasp. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't surviving, it's making sure your time in this world means something that carries on after you're gone. And here's the question that lingers after the dust settles, after the episode ends, and you're staring at the screen with that weight in your chest that only great anime knows how to create. If you knew that the only way to protect the people you love was to become the sacrifice, would you have the courage to smile all the way to the end, the way she did?